Okay, great. So we are live and we're streaming on LinkedIn via our page. We're also streaming on YouTube. I'm also sending this stream on Twitter. At the moment, we have four persons joining us. So thank you so much for being here. We'll start off in a moment.
Do you find it overwhelming to manage several properties at the same time? Does it seem like you're running out of time to achieve all your daily tasks? We know just how you feel, and we're here to help. Our app allows you to manage all your properties from your smartphone, anywhere you are, anytime you want. Download the Venco admin app from your local app store today. Do you find it overwhelming to manage several properties at the same time? Does it seem like you're running out of time to achieve all your daily tasks? We know just how you feel, and we're here to help. Our app allows you to manage all your properties from your smartphone, anywhere you are, anytime you want. Download the Venco admin app from your local app store today.
My name is Yetine Ogunadigbe. I'm a resident of Pine Water Gardens too. I came to know about Venco sometime last year. I used it as an administrator when the facility management left us in the dark, and then Venco came to our rescue. So we used it as an administrator, and then I'm using it as a resident now. Oh, the resident app, I use it to book visitors. I use it to pay for my electricity, and I use it to pay for my service charge, and then report issues if any. So I'll start with the biggest one, the most amazing one to me. I do not have to interact with the security as much anymore, because when I need to book visitors, I book it via the app, and they just come in, so I know who's coming in. And then two, I can get my electricity tokens easily. So I just pay for electricity, get my tokens via the app, input it, and that's it. And then I use it to pay for my service charge every month. So it makes the process seamless. Also, less interaction with management. There was a time where the security phone stopped working. Because I was using the app, the phone they use for the app is totally different, and I was able to book my visitors. I didn't have to think about the new number that they had changed it to or anything like that. So it made my life easy that day. No hassles, no issues, nothing. So yes, it really came to the rescue that day. I would recommend it 100%. It makes your life easy. totally, totally easy. I'm not even lying. It makes it easy. You can book your visitors easily. You can pay for electricity easily. You can pay for your service charge easily. You can report your issues easily. Everything becomes seamless. So I would recommend it 100%. My name is
Do you find it overwhelming to manage several properties at the same time? Does it seem like you're running out of time to achieve all your daily tasks? We know just how you feel, and we're here to help. Our app allows you to manage all your properties from your smartphone. Anywhere you are, anytime you want. Download the Venco admin app from your local app store today.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Wonderful afternoon to everyone that's here today, to our speakers and everyone who's joining us from different platforms. We're streaming live on YouTube, we're streaming live on LinkedIn, and we're live on Twitter. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with us today. Um, and with that, we're going to kick off and start the webinar here. But before we start, I would like to introduce us to the webinar and speak a bit about Venko, who's hosting the webinar today. So, all right, great. So we're going to start. We're going to start right away. All right. So just to confirm that everyone can hear me, so wherever you're joining from, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, or whether it's LinkedIn, leave a comment on the stream. Let us know the quality of the video where you are, and so our technical team knows to make any adjustments. We want to make sure you have the best experience throughout the session. So in the next 1 hour, we're going to be speaking on the subject, the challenge of 24/7 power in estates. But we're not just going to be talking about this, but we're not just going to talk about the challenges, right? But our expert speakers are going to be speaking on the best practices that we have experienced, that we can share, from experience, right? For energy management in multi-unit communities. And the conversation is not just going to be beneficial to residents, but it's going to be beneficial to us in different capacities, from developers to facility managers, who are looking to provide better and more efficient services in their communities. And why are we doing this today, right? This is at the center of all that we do at Venco. So it just makes sense for us to speak about what we do at Venco. In case this is the first time that you are coming in contact with Venco, or this is the first time you're joining any of our conversations, just so you are aware what we do at Venco. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes to speak to us about what we do at Venco. All right, everyone. So, what do we do at Venco basically? So, at Venco, we like to describe what we've built or what we're building as the operating system for smart communities and safe communities. And basically, what we do at Venco is we have built and we're providing technology solutions that help property managers and residents manage communities and provide better living experiences for people who live within these communities. And our solution simplifies everyday processes from access to estate, visitor access, bill payments, laying complaints, electricity, vending, self-service, and so much more. So basically, what we do is we take away the stress of managing these estates and help you as a facility manager focus on doing the things that you should be doing, and the things that just make you run your estate better. And what we do for the residents is we now reduce the amount of friction, the amount of time that it takes to communicate, liaise, and complain to your facility managers. We just make all of the process seamless. That is how we describe what we do at Venco. Can you, okay, all right, so all right, great. So at Venco, like I explained, I just explained what we do at Venco. We believe that what we're doing is unique. We're on a mission, and it's very clear, right, to provide simplified living experience to these communities. And so far, and this is data from but majority of our operations are here in Lagos, Nigeria. We're also in Port Harcourt, we're in Enugu, we're across different cities in Nigeria. And but the goal for us is to be able to provide this service across Africa because we see a very, very big potential for the solutions that we're providing. We're currently in over 14,000 property units and serving over 15,000 occupants. And this is something that these are numbers that cut across over 200 estates across our client base. Just a bit of some of the locations that we're in. You find Venco in Abuja, there's Venco in Enugu, Port Harcourt, Ondo, Ekiti, and Nairobi in Kenya, like I mentioned. But the most part of our work has been in Lagos, where we've seen success with over 90% of our footprints in the Lekki areas in Lagos State. So one of the questions we get is, who do we now serve, right? So facility managers have the questions: Are we serving facility managers? Are we looking to replace facility managers? But on the contrary, right, the work that we do at Venco aids facility managers and helps them to even provide better services. So we have Venco for facility managers. And basically, what that does is help you run your community sustainably with minimal stress from your phone. So it means that you have more time to rest, have more time to sleep, and these are some of the features we'll be discussing, at some point during this webinar. There's also Venco for residents, right? So everything you need to simplify your life, basically from buying utility, buying power, buying water, giving access to your guests who are coming to the estate without having to call the estate security every single time, and just do that effectively. And for the security, we just make their life easier, right? By providing you same tool that they're able to manage visitor access and minimize the amount of time they have to call and track who is coming to the estate and when they are leaving. So a little bit of details into what we do for the facility managers. Facility managers is our platform to collect for collections, also all kinds of collections. And the beautiful thing is that they can use our app to do every single thing from whether it's service charge, whether it's any kind of dues that they collect within their communities. And there's also utility vending as well, and there's issue management, and then there's real-time issue reporting. This is something very, very important. This minimizes the amount of time that people spend to communicate with their facility managers. Then there's communication as well. So there's seamless communication between the residents and the admins. And we also have smart meters for the facility managers as well. So what the smart meters do, and we're going to speak about that because it's very, very particular to this conversation, is that aside the fact that we are able to vend power or water from our platform, the smart meters now further enables you and gives you access to more features, right? You're able to track your usage, you're able to track your spend, and for the facility managers as well, right? What we've seen with people who have adopted our platform over time is not just the fact that they're able to effectively manage their estates, but we've also seen a hike in how much they're able to collect in terms of collections and bills, right? So in terms of revenue as well, Venco is impacting how much revenue our facility manager and clients are receiving, and that just speaks to the last point, revenue assurance as well. Then for residents, there's a lot that we do for you, right? So there's easy payments, because every single thing happens within the app. There's visitor booking that we spoke about earlier, and within the app you can report issues. So anything is going on, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home or try to call somebody. Everything is on there, and the beautiful thing about having it on the app is it's recorded, and it can be tracked until when that issue is resolved. And then there's transparency as well, which is something that's very, very peculiar, even the conversation that we're going to be having, because you can see every single thing from transactions, from how you're using power, whatever utility you're using. There's a transparency in that process of communicating and managing, and even you as a resident as well, liaising with the facility managers. And then there's something called marketplace, right? So which is if you're on this live, then you are hearing it for the first time from us. But it's something that we're also bringing, and alongside other many amazing features that we're going to be bringing to further make your life easier. So imagine that from the comfort of your home, you have access not just to the facilities within the estates, but also things that you would use on in your everyday life at home. And then for security, basically, we provide certain features like code-based access, digital cards and car stickers, virtual IDs, and physical access devices as well. So all of these things basically make the work of facility managers in respect of the admins seamless, more effective, and like I said, further reduces the amount of time that you have to call the residents, try to figure out who's accessing what property, and all of that. So yeah, with all of that said, we're hoping that you have a great time throughout the course of this webinar, and reach out to us. We're happy to answer your questions about all of the services that we offer. And also, what we look out to is also show you a first-hand, a first-hand show of how our platform also works and how we can implement this in your estates. With that said, I'm going to be introducing us. So I officially welcome you all to the webinar today and introduce someone who's going to take charge of the entire conversation. I'm going to introduce Feyi. Feyi manages our operations here at Venco, and aside from that, she she has worked with all of our clients and residents, and the best person to lead the conversation and moderate the conversation as we go on. So thank you all for joining and deciding to spend your afternoon with us. With that said, I would like to welcome Faye to take over and give us an overview of the kind of conversations we're going to be having today and the speakers that are going to be having this conversation with us. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. So John has actually done a brief overview of what we do at Venco, and I will just go ahead and introduce our speakers. So we're going to start with our very own CEO and co-founder at Venco. His name is Judy Osiegbu. He is an SAP consultant, and he has extensive experience in the financial management, accounting, joint venture accounting. And as a background, he has a background as a developer, a Python hobbyist, ex-Java developer, and architect. And so let's welcome Judy Osiegbu to our panelist. Also, thank you for joining Mayowa Ani. Mayowa is the CEO of Principal Facilities Management, an operational service provider. He's a member of the International Facility Management Association, and he's also important to us at Venco. He's one of our strategic partners at Venco, and is using our platform to help manage the communities where he helps to manage your communities. So thank you. Welcome, Mayowa. We also have Mide Popola. He is the Technical Operations Executive at Viaten Engineering. So Viaten Engineering is the pioneer integrated energy service solution company in Nigeria that specializes in embedded power generation, providing modular last-mile scalable power as a service to the end user for quicker, cheaper, more efficiently to the commercial and other service markets. In layman's terms, they are referred to as an IPP. So Midi, thank you for joining our webinar. We are happy to have you here. So also introducing Aima Ojekere. She's the only lady in the panel. Thank you for joining. She's a developer with experience in the construction industry. She is CEO of TAD Builders. So she's skilled in construction, change orders. She's in and also facility management, because she also has one of our estates on our platform, helping her run operations easier and more efficiently. So welcome, madam. It's good to have you here. So and last but not least, we have Mr. Adewale Adetubo. He is a tech expert and president of Growth as Sentient Networks. So he's also a tech person. And his network offers cutting edge services in infrastructure, in network management, in data integration, and application management solutions. So thank you all for joining. It's good to have you here. And also to everyone that has joined this webinar. We do not take your time for granted. Thank you so much. So we just so that we manage time. Each speaker, you've got 2 minutes to talk about the questions and how we're going to help to talk about the questions you'll be asked. And basically, this discussion is looking at the challenges of adopting the 24/7 power delivery in multi-unit communities. So I would like to start off with Mide. So in this 24/7 power in multi-unit communities, how would you say the adoption has been across the various communities you provide services for?
Thank you, Faye, and good afternoon, everyone. Faye, if you can confirm, can you hear me clearly?
Very well, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, excellent. All right. Okay. So adoption, I think the way to look at it is if you go historical and you go maybe the last 5 years when we've, as Viatan, for instance, started redirecting our business model and looking at the CINW market where we begin to provide electricity supply to commercial, industrial, and also residential. Right. I would say that at the point, the service was pretty new in the market where, for instance, people were used to diesel as backup, right? You have your grid supply, then you have your diesel. And for some people that they would introduce renewables, solar and the rest, right? And we came in saying that we have a new proposition where you can get reliable electricity supply cheaper and cleaner, right? So I think the fact that that solution was new to the market in the way that we sort of distribute that solution, knowing fully well that we do it embedded distribution infrastructure where we have a distribution infrastructure and deliver that to customers at various locations within the franchise, within the clusters that Venco also operates in on the Lagos Island. And but in recent time, I would say benefiting from the increasing price in diesel, scarcity of fuel, volatility in forex and all of those things. We've had more people come to say the solution seems like the future and this is more sustainable for us. And as a result, I would say that when you look, if I were to rate the adoption in terms of how we relate our customers sort of coming to take our solution, I would say that has dropped by almost maybe 60% today. There are other things that also affect adoption, as you know, it's infrastructure. So development timeline, for instance, how long it takes you to reticulate the connection infrastructure for a customer, whether it's captive or embedded. Should I say some other things include, the contractual conversations where you have to go through a process of negotiating PPA. So those things sort of add to the adoption timeline today, right? And but in a nutshell, commercially, that has really improved over in the last 1 year.
Okay, thank you, Mide, on that. So that is looking at it from the angle of an IPP. So I will come to Mayowa. So you are a facility manager, and I know that your residents would want 24/7 power. So how has that adoption been for you? What's realistic for you, and what have you been able to offer them? Is that 24/7 power possible?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
very well.
Okay, great. As you've said, yes, residents want 24/7 power. Maybe the question should also have delved more into if you're referring to 24/7 power, backup power, or grid power. It comes down in the end to what residents can afford.
True.
And so it comes to your blend, what percentage is grid, what percentage is backup, and the source of backup. Um, Mide spoke about renewable power, which is, in theory, for now, is supposed to be cheaper to generate.
Hello. I think Mayowa's network is frozen. Okay, so while we wait for his network to come back up, let me move to our CEO. So he stays in one in a community that uses Venco, and also is a multi-unit community, and I'm sure they have their challenges. So do you want to talk to us about the adoption in your community and how you've also helped your community in making this a seamless process?
Okay, so thanks, Faye, and welcome again, everyone. So the demand for 24/7 power, I would say, with the current cost of energy, has become a bit tempered. So where people used to be very demanding and desirous of this, we have actually had many communities where they have had to scale back that contract between themselves and their residents, such that the economics can finally or can work, at the end of the day. So in my own community, for example, we have had to take the step of having at least 2 or 3 hours every day or during the weekdays where if there's no public power, then we all just don't have power. But then if there's public power, we'll enjoy that benefit. So that's been one set of adaptations that we've seen to the increasing cost of energy and just the need to make ends meet. However, across other estates, they've taken different approaches. So some estates have maintained their 24/7 power, but it has been clear that that comes at a higher cost, right? And depending on the agreement of the residents, the constituents of the community, then they've agreed that it works for them and they keep the lights on 24/7. So I would say that across our portfolio, we've actually seen more of that than places where they have cut back on the hours of power. However, there are many strategies that have been applied to this, and I think that further on in the webinar, we'll discuss more in detail some of the strategies that different communities have taken and how what the best practices that we have synthesized from these are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Childe, for that. So, and you just talked on something about how different communities have been able to adapt to this. So I'll be coming to you, Madam Aima. So we know that the diesel hike has increased tariff. So how has this hike in diesel prices affected the tariff system or the way power has been in terms of giving you power in your estate? Has it reduced, has it increased, or what steps has your facility managers done to provide this power to you, and they come at a huge cost providing it?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Very well. I can.
You can hear me. Okay. I'm fortunate enough to say that I can talk from both the user and also the provider. And really, it's because of the seamless efforts of the system that made me um, reach out to you guys to be able to provide us with the power that we need in my new development. With the price of diesel going up, it has been a major challenge for even the rich and the famous, because I don't see anybody wanting to spend that much money on diesel when we could actually get something better. So with the use of your system, we've been able to curtail and control the way power is being generated to our residents, both me being a resident and also the people who are staying in my development. So we've controlled diesel buying. We've learned to streamline. I'm not like the people who give 24/7. I'm not there yet. Maybe my Ikoyi development will be 24/7. But for now, we are doing the 7 to 7. Mide, you smile. We're doing the 7 in my development. We're doing the 7 to 7, which is 12 hours. In the estate where I am staying, we had to reduce the number of hours so that it can be affordable to us. So that's it.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting to see different strategies people are adopting in their various estates and communities. So we have Mayowa back online. So the question
Yes.
we had was about the diesel hike and what methods have you adopted to, like you were talking about something earlier before network cuts in.
Yes,
Please go ahead.
before network acted up. So as I said, yes, we all want 24/7 power, but truth is we can't. We being myself, both as an occupant and also from the facility management side, is very few people, as Mrs. Ima just said, can afford 24/7 power, backup power right now. Diesel has surged from, I think, December 2021 was sub 300 naira. And in Q1 for last year, it went from 300 to as high as 700, and it's kept creeping up. So we're at 840 or thereabouts, depending on your location and where you're sourcing diesel from right now. It's been a rude shock to a lot of our sites. We have multiple locations of various capacities, and even with our prime luxury accommodation, we do not have anyone currently willing to run 247. When you have people, I mean, we had an extreme case of somebody who somehow managed to run up a bill of 500,000 in a week because they were more or less on gain and vending. And of course, his default reaction was to say maybe there was a bypass or something funny going on. No, it was just, his normal usage habits, was no longer sustainable. So right now within the system, it's very difficult to get a lot of locations who can still afford to run 247 power at the moment. So it's desirable, but is it practical? Is it feasible? It's just not with diesel and not with the current price of diesel.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayowa. So we see realistic numbers here, which is very interesting. So actually, I want Mide to dive into this conversation because you guys provide gas. You use gas plants to provide energy to people. So is this diesel hike affecting you people also? And if it is, so does it affect the number of hours you're guaranteeing your customers? Hi, Mide.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you, Faye. So, like you rightly said, we Vaton generates electricity primarily through gas. So a lot of our power plants are gas to power power plants. However, because reliability and should I say availability is at the core front um, of our service proposition to our customers. In many cases, our plants also have, should I say, diesel backup, right? But that's really, we use that at extreme cases when we don't have gas to provide electricity. What we've seen in the market is when you compare, should I say, gas to power and diesel to power in terms of naira terms, right? Like Mayowa just rightly said, right? The cost of diesel today is, should I say, an average of 750 naira per liter, right? And that same cost, that 1 liter of diesel would produce almost the same amount of energy, electrical energy, in kilowatt hours that, should I say, ISCOM of gas would also produce, right? It's not the same, but I would say it's the delta is less than 10%, right? Depending on the efficiency of your engine. And when you take that number for number and maybe the average ISCOM of gas in the market today, it's somewhere around maybe 200 naira, depending on where you are in the country, right? You would see that for one, you're producing 1 kilowatt of, you're producing energy, same almost the same amount with 750 and another with 200. So that delta between the price of diesel and the price of gas already puts Viatan in a position where we're able to deliver electricity to our customers at a cheaper rate. So again, we don't generate necessarily from diesel. It's back of the extreme. So I would say that doesn't necessarily affect us. But does it affect our operations? Yes. So clearly, we have plants today that run, say, on CNG, right? And to a large extent, CNG, you have to truck them from one place to another, from the mother station to the daughter station, for instance. And today, whilst Viatan is one of the companies championing CNG as for automobile, where you're powering your CNG with automobile, you still find out that because that infrastructure is not fully developed yet, where all of our vehicles can run on gas, we still have trucks that run on diesel. And when those prices go up, it affects the cost of CNG too marginally, right? So operationally, yes, the price of diesel would affect a lot of things. It's also a reflection of the market, right, where you also see inflation and all of those things affecting every other thing. So yes, it does affect, but in terms of our service to our customers, I think it puts us at a better position. Today, I'll give you a good example. One of our plants within the Lekki gets maxed up from time to time. We're currently also trying to increase the capacity of the plant to ensure that we're able to meet the growing demand within the area. And we believe that will continue to happen. And that's why I was laughing when Aima was talking, because maybe after now it would be useful to discuss with Aima to ensure 24-hour supply to a facility in Ikoyi.
Okay, so there you go. You have your backup plan. So moving on to Mr. Wali. So how do you see this increase in energy tariff? How is it affecting your community, and how, based on your experience, what do you think is the best way to manage this situation?
Okay, can everybody hear me, first of all? Okay,
Very well.
fantastic. I'm sorry, I've been having internet challenges. Okay, I'm going to be a bit discomfiting, and I'm going to say this. Yeah, the energy challenges that people are having with 24/7 power are down to the Nigerian factor of incompetence. I will explain. Yeah, you are charged on what you consume, yes? If that is true, yeah, the service provider is meant to provide you power all the time, and you control your cost by your consumption, yes? Is that not correct?
Yeah, correct.
In ideal situation, yeah.
So if that is true, no, not in an ideal situation. You know, sometimes I'm accused of being an idealist, but in Nigeria, we become accustomed to incompetence. And so, hey, guess what? We manage, but we do not even bother to ask, what is the right thing to do? Yeah? Okay. Midday and Mayo made some key points about the cost of power. Yeah. So basically, diesel is the most expensive cost, followed by gas, followed by NEPA, which is the utility, and followed by renewables. Yeah. The goal of your service provider is to be able to tell you that based on his input cost, this is what a kilowatt of power costs. You will now take whatever consumption decision you want based on that cost. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
So your service
True.
provider
Yes.
must be able to provide you power 24/7, and then you now decide whether or not you turn on the switch. Is that not correct? You have that expectation of NEPA. Everybody has that expectation everywhere in the world. Is that not correct? I'm asking questions, people.
Yes.
So
Yes,
why
it
is it that we've now become totally Nigerian? We know NEPA is broken, and we now ask our service provider to act like NEPA and say, you know what, give me 12 hours because 12 hours is what I can afford. But that makes no sense. What you can afford is totally based on your consumption. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
People, I'm asking for feedback here.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. So why does the
Yeah,
service
very correct.
provider do that? The service provider does that because generally, yeah, they have misengineered their systems. Yeah. A typical house, the average energy consumption swings from anything from 0.2 kilowatts an hour to a peak of 12 kilowatts an hour. So the service provider has a challenge. The service provider needs to be able to provide power economically at when everybody is consuming, say, zero, and also accommodate the peaks. Yeah. But the service provider does not do that. And why does the service provider not do that? Because the service provider is successful in pushing his or her inefficiency towards you. The service provider is supposed to provide you, this is the cost of energy. So, for example, 1 liter of diesel produces anything between 3.2 kilowatts to 3.3 kilowatts hours of power. So what does that mean?
So I think his network is because he actually said his network is frozen. But I could see the reaction on Mayo Mide's. So do you do you want to comment? Because what he's trying to say is there's a cost for consumption. So if people can afford it, why not give it to them? So he's looking at it that we are hiding under inefficiencies in generation. So do you want to comment on that, please? So Mide, do you want to go first?
Okay, yes, I'll take a shot at it. I think some of the things you said are valid, but I think
Hello, I apologize. Airtel seems determined to deal with me today. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
yes,
you
we can
are.
hear you
Yes,
now.
I
Yes,
can
we
hear you.
can.
We can hear you now. I think maybe our next series like
Ah,
this should be how to guarantee
okay.
247.
Before I accuse Maiwa and Mide of disconnecting me.
Okay, we still can't hear you if you're speaking.
So Mayo and Mide, you guys are really working harder. We can't hear him.
Okay,
So
so
maybe we can let Mide continue and then hear quickly from Mayowa. I have some points to make in this area as well, but maybe we can hear from them.
Okay, Mide, please continue.
Hello, Chidi, you were breaking up.
Yeah, I think the
Or was it?
connection, I think, yeah, it's still breaking up, Wale. Okay, so Midi, please go ahead.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay. So, like I said, I sort of agree with some of the things you said, and I think Feyu was the first person who said that in an ideal situation, um, some of the things is mentioned
Yeah.
are valid, and that should be the standard. However, Wally, are you back? Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, and I get very distressed when we talk about in an ideal situation. That is code for a Nigerian being accepting of mediocrity. Yeah, your bank transfer doesn't work, so the banker goes, "Oh, in an ideal situation," but he doesn't tell you that, hey, the things he was meant to have done in the back end, he did not do. So I'm sorry, I need to. I get a bit pained when people implicitly assume that we are incapable of doing the right things. Maybe because I'm an engineer, yeah, and one of the things I do is I do the right things. So, yeah, going back, I made mention to the fact that it is now entirely up to the consumer that determines how much he or she pays based on what they consume. Yeah. So it is the service provider's job to guarantee that power is available 24/7 at a specific cost. What happens is this: because of the way a number of service providers provision power, they find that they are unable to accommodate economically times of low demand. So if you've got a service provider, he drops one or two large generators in your yard, okay, and he says that, okay, this is the price of power. But what the service provider hasn't told you is that, because of the way generators work, they need a minimum load to be economic. But at night, during the day, when you don't have people in the house, yeah, they can't meet those minimum loads, but they charge you for it. And all of a sudden, you now have a price and say, okay, this is how much power costs, and we can't afford it. But that's not true. They're not providing you transparency as to, okay, this is how much diesel or gas we're consuming to generate the power we're providing to you. Yeah, then you can now immediately see that, okay, if that is true, yeah, you shouldn't be charging this. The challenge I find is this, is that often when we do power provision, we do not do the right things in the back end. So the right things at the back end are involving Chudi and the Venco crew to be able to tell you that, over time, this is the energy demand. I'll give you an example. In my own estate, over time, the energy demand varies from 0.6 kilowatt hours to 42 kilowatt hours. Yeah. But at the first time, when we were pursuing 24/7 power, the service provider brought in a 250 kVA generator. Now, the way generators work is that at a minimum, the generator will always consume diesel equivalent to 25% of its load. So 25% of 250 kVA, well, that was more diesel than the estate actually needed or ever consumed. So that now ends up with another myth, which is very popular in Nigeria. And the myth is, with a generator, your fuel consumption is fixed. But your fuel consumption isn't fixed. Your fuel consumption appears fixed because the generator is underloaded. So because the generator is underloaded, you're always consuming the same amount of diesel. So my message is this. If you are not getting 24/7 power, the issue is with your service provider. Your service provider should explicitly be able to tell you, this is the cost at this time for power. This is not to say that the cost will vary over time. It will, because, hey, if your service provider is, for example, using diesel or using something I hate particularly, whenever you see a service provider talk about a blended cost for power, just take the service provider out to the back room and beat him. Because whenever a service provider tells you, blended cost, the service provider is shaving your head. What the service provider should be doing is that, this is the cost when we're on NEPA. This is what we'll charge you. This is the cost when we're on diesel. This is how much we will charge you. But if the service provider tells you, we have a blended cost, but he doesn't give you any visibility as to when NEPA was providing power or when they were using diesel, there's a chump in the room, and that chump isn't the service provider. The interesting thing is, Venco gives you the tools in which you can provide transparency. Because of the way Nigeria is, we're innately distrusting, because we're a low trust society, because the consequences for misbehavior are low. So we're always defensive because it is likely we are being cheated. Now, transparency gives comfort. So if you've agreed, this is what power will cost, these are my input costs, these are what it is that you've consumed, everybody is now satisfied at the end of the day that, okay, my power costs X. Because my power costs X, I will now not use my air conditioner at certain times. That is not to say that, I won't have power.
Okay, sir. We are trying to stick to time, sir. So,
okay.
2 minutes.
Sorry. My
sorry.
passion
I know,
got ahead of me
because
people
1 hour.
are basically being anyway. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And I know Mide and Maiwa can't wait to comment. So, Mide, please go ahead. You were saying something, please. We're trying to stick to time, 2 minutes. And before I call Mr. Ugo to comment too. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I have to say that I like the perspective that Mr. Wali brings to the table, right? And that should be the perspective that all of us should have as we think about sustainable and reliable solution in the energy space. But I also think that Mr. Wali, the way I'll say it is the development journey or the development pipeline. It's a journey, right? We are clearly not where we ought to be as a nation in terms of delivery of energy to ourselves, not to customers this time. We're not there yet, right? But I think that we're better off than where we were yesterday. And I think what I would say to you is, or what I'll say to everyone is, as we transition through the development stages for getting to that point where Mr. Wale wants us to be and where we should all aspire to be, where, for instance, electricity supply is transparent, you understand how much you're consuming from the grid. If you have a backup system, you know what that is. If you have other sources, you can manage everything. The customer effectively becomes the becomes at effectively is now at the center. You can manage your own consumption and how much you really want to expend in terms of to energy supply. Right, but when you look at it today, right, for independent power providers, I would say that there are certain constraints financially and engineering wise that would necessitate some of the conditions that you've spoken about. So, for instance, if a facility management company says, "Hey, I can only deliver power to you at night between say 7 p.m. and 7 a.m." Right? Clearly, they've put into a couple of they've thought through a couple of things. One of them would be one, what's the optimal time that when my residents are when I own my generator, my residents are taking enough consumption, right, or enough energy from the generator, whereby it covers both my fixed and variable costs. Because what we've said mostly on this call are things that are related to, should I say, the variable cost of the diesel. And you also have mentioned, for instance, that if your generator is running at anything less than 25-30%, right, you're still consuming the same fuel it will consume at 25 and 30%, right? And that means for me, if, for instance,
Mide, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm interrupting you. Yeah, the subtext is this: the generator was inappropriately sized in the first instance. So why don't we fix that? That's what it is that you've just admitted. The generator was inappropriately sized in the first instance. So why don't you do the right thing at the very beginning, yeah, and get the engineering right, instead of asking the customer to pay for one's incompetence? That's basically what it is that you're saying. I'm sorry I interrupted, but I think this is a very important point. Let us do the right thing at the very beginning. Yeah. And for facility owners, one of the right things is involve consulting engineers when you are engaging with power providers. You have no idea what you don't know. But you can see me, they're telling us basically that, hey, financial and engineering constraints, yeah, which is basically code for, we did the wrong thing, but you're going to pay for it.
I necessarily don't think
I
that was.
apologize, Mide, for raking you over the coals. Yeah, but sometimes I am a bit forthright.
Okay. This is getting interesting. So may they continue, please. So just wrap up.
okay, I think what I'll say in a nutshell is I do get your point, Mr. Wale, and I don't want this to almost seem like a debate between the both of us. So I'll just get straight to the point, and hopefully we can move on from this, or maybe after now we could have a conversation around it. But I hear you on detailed design and engineering, which is what you said, right? That there needs to be design that optimizes for the right solution, right? And I would say not necessarily a Viatan case, right? But if you look at a lot of the commercial customers, for instance, where, for instance, you have peak and off-peak demand, right? And your design or your installation always has to consider both the peak and off-peak demand, right? It puts you also in, technically, it puts you in a position where you always have to figure out, am I going to constrain my clients from using power at their peak, or am I going to force them to use power beyond their off peak, right? So those conversations, and I also hear you. We could go into energy management and all of those things, right? But like I said to you, it's a journey, right? And I'm happy that someone like you are at the forefront of reminding everyone on this call that we need to be at that place. But again, it does not necessarily mean that it does not necessarily mean that that's our reality right now. We should aspire to be there, right? But there's a journey to it, right? There's a lot of things, including economic of scales, that that impact the design, the engineering, and we do all of these things every day, right? And for us, for instance, the most important thing for us is delivering the most cost-effective, efficient, and reliable electricity supply solution to our customers. And whatever that is, as long as it also allows us to do the things that we want to do, whereby ensuring that we're not going beyond our clean energy thresholds, right? We want to do that. But again and again, I think it's a journey, and it's not necessarily a thing where the facility or utility providers are shaving off people's head. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mide. So I'll come to Maya. 1 minute, please.
Okay, a few things I'll just unpack bullet points, and I'm going to make reference to the reality on ground. This is not about talking about perfection. Now, the typical reality on ground, and I speak for all facility managers, is you take over an asset, not necessarily residential, even commercial and thereabouts, and the backup power design is flawed. I'm sure you all know of somebody with a 4 or 5 bedroom home with a 60 or 70 kVA thinking, yes, to carry all these air conditioners and all. I have, even right now in my portfolio, a couple of new builds where, for example, you have maybe 43 homes and only 30 people have moved in. And the developer has dropped maybe a 200 and a 350. But at 2 occupants, even at 12 occupants, there is no tariff you're going to set that is cost sustainable. Right? So we first need to understand the reality on ground is, we can't go that way. What are the options? Somebody to procure a smaller or lease a smaller generator at that point. Mrs. Ima would definitely not want to take on that cost responsibility as a developer. Your typical homeowner who has just committed so much to acquiring a property does not have the financial will or capacity to do that. And of course, it's not the FM who is like merely the driver and operator of the site. So you're stuck with a larger generator and you're expecting 24/7 power, you will cough blood or you will trim your running hours. That is the reality on ground as we speak. As Mr. Wale said, a blended tariff, I never go near it. Not necessarily because it's fraud, but it's just sticking your finger in the wind. There are no parameters to accurately assess what is going on in the blended tariff. So whilst you could be making money as the FM, when diesel goes crazy and the grid goes crazy, you could also dig a deep pit for yourself, right? So any self-respecting professional should run from a blended tariff. It is pure guesswork. There's no basis for a blended tariff. Going back to what Mr. Wale also said about expecting 24/7 power because I'm generating power and it's up to me to set a tariff. He also, at the same time spoke about redundancy. And as long as there's redundancy, you can only get 24/7 power with 2 or 3 options. One is you have a variable tariff, perpetually variable. Because my water just switched off an AC now, the tariff is spreading more and more people. Then somebody puts on a water heater, then it's spreading differently. I've not seen that anywhere in the world where it works. The other option is you have a diesel levy, which means everybody pays X amount up front. You buy bulk, you utilize when it's running down, you levy again. As I said, I'm speaking practically. Those are the options. Those are the only ways you can get 24/7 power in residential communities for now, based on my experience with multiple sites and well over a decade of battling, this menace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayo. Thank you so much for that. So before I move on to Judy, Mr. Ogo, welcome. And I remember one of your tweets I read. You said, all of a sudden I fell in love with fans. And I was like, wow, no wonder fans are quite expensive these days. So in your community, 24/7 power how have you been able to manage that?
All right. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I logged in a little late. I had the wrong link. Okay, so I think it's been pretty much consistent. The only challenge we've had is cost, and I think in Nigeria, the challenge with power has always been cost. I'm also opportune to, work in a distribution company, so at least I have insights. I hope you can hear me clearly, though.
Yes,
Okay.
very well.
Yes, we can.
So I have insights
Anybody hear
from
me?
all angles. So it's really cost, right? And listening to Mide and Mario and even Wale, I think what's pretty clear is that there's really no there is no formula for delivering power at a very cheap cost at the moment in Nigeria. It's not just there. And that's what a lot of people don't understand yet. And that's also why grid power is not doing that well, because it's not rightly priced. For power to be very cheap, you need demand. You need a lot of people that are consuming, and the sort of consumption we have in Nigeria today, it's not that much. You don't have a lot of industries, you don't have a lot of manufacturing companies that are on grid. So everybody seems to be modular. So like maybe you look at Coca-Cola or Cadbury or Nestle, they have their own individual, power plants. And so if you run on that kind of model, then power is ultimately going to be expensive because you don't have the economic scale that will spread that cost across a lot of people. So bring that to estates, it's a similar thing. So no, you can't have two estates have the same unit cost of power, even if they are side by side, because there are a lot of variables. So it's either they're just too small or the other one is too many. And even if there are too many, you don't have a lot of guzzlers there. Maybe, it could be just a medium scale estate, so different things. But what is clear is that the cost of the generators are usually the same. So whether it's a 10 kV or 25 or 50 or a transformer, it's the same cost. So all they do is that they basically spread that cost, across the people that are consuming. And so, but in my own experience, the reason why it's worked so far and why we haven't kicked out those guys is because I think some of the residents can afford it. That's just the honest truth. It's been very difficult, but it's the largest thing they can afford it, because they can't afford it, they'll kick them out. Somebody spoke about saying you should box. I guess he was joking, but box whoever gives you a blended tariff. I beg to disagree too. I actually have friends who live in estates where the tariffs are different. So you have a meter for the grid tariff, and you have another meter for generator. They've kicked out their generator guys 2-3 times because you don't, so you can't tell the generator guy what his margin is, okay? Because you don't know his cost of funds. His cost of funds is different. So even though you probably know the cost of the generator, the price of the diesel, and you can have a model that plugs all those things in, it's never enough. So because again, like I said, it all depends on the scale. So I know estates where they've kicked out different generator guys. At some point, decide to manage it themselves, and when they manage it themselves, they start fighting because one resident or the other is chopping money, diesel money, or they don't trust each other, and then they decide to go back again. So it's always that cycle. So that it's worked for us, it's basically that we can afford to pay, but it's been excruciatingly expensive, very difficult. Today I pay roughly 210 naira per kilowatt hour. There was a time when, fun fact, there was a time when we were getting 80% power from the grid, right? And it only dropped to about 185 or something. And the grid power was like maybe 60 naira. Now, so if you work out the math, cost of the generator is a fixed cost. So the fixed cost of the generator, if the fixed cost of your generator already takes up, 30% of your tariff, 30% of your tariff, it really doesn't matter how much power you get from the grid, because somebody has to pay for that fixed cost of the generator. Yeah. So somebody has incurred that cost already, and you got to be able to pay back. The diesel price is not changing, right? You still got to maintain things. So it's difficult, again, like I said, to really get power at a price that's accommodating for everyone. What is key is affordability. So if you affordability and what you prioritize. So I prioritize 24/7 power. I like to have lighting at my home. So for that reason, I don't go to Zaza. I know these clubs that people go and spend money. I don't go there. I don't go there because if you go to Zaza or you go to all these very expensive places, then
I'm laughing at you as if.
All right, so I think that's it, though. I don't know if there's any other question, but that's it for me.
Thank you so much.
Want to see something?
Yeah. It's network.
Yeah, there are a number of myths, and we keep. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can. What you can do is turn off your camera so that maybe
can
that
you
can
hear
just
me?
lower your data. Yeah, we can hear you, but turn off your camera.
Hello.
Since you're not.
Yes, Wale, we can hear you, but let's see if you cut your camera.
Faye,
let's see
can
if
you
it's
hear me?
better. Yes,
Yes,
we
I can hear you, but try and switch off your camera. Maybe it helps.
Yeah, I think maybe that's okay. I think that would help. Yeah.
Yes.
There are a number. Yeah, I've
We can hear you clearly.
I've turned
So
off
just
my
go ahead.
camera.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. So go ahead.
I've turned off my camera.
Yeah. I think there's a lag, and
So
that's why.
yeah, there are a number of pervasive myths around power. Yeah, and yeah, myths around myths around the costs, myths around depreciation.
Okay, so that we don't, we have some questions to go through. So if you can hear us, we can't hear you. So moving on. So in terms of so I'm going to direct this to Madam Aima. So as a developer, how do you think you've been able to tackle this in terms of managing the cost? So I know in development you consider some things in terms of where would these meters be positioned to avoid energy theft, because we've seen situations whereby meters are placed in people's kitchen or by their houses, their backyards, whereby it's easy to tamper with it. So
Manipulate.
exactly. So I know in development you consider that in terms of the wiring. You consider things like Mr. Wally said in terms of dual tariff method, getting meters with that is capable of setting tariff for eco, for the discos and for the alternative source of energy. So how are you tackling this as a developer? Because I'm sure you have to consider some of this in your design.
One of the things I always tell people is before you go into the field and build, you need to build on paper. And one of the things that we did, I too am an engineer. I'm not a developer. I'm a civil and construction engineer. What we did was to sit with the mechanical and the electrical engineer to look at all the units and look at the possible equipments or that will be used in each apartment to develop the type of generator and kind of transformer that we will acquire for this apartment. Fortunately for us, we haven't used our generator. The apartment came in we opened up in December, and since December till now, we don't use our generator because we've had lights all through. So with the kind of meter that we got, that when I met with Chude, that was one thing that actually attracted me to this Venco, was that there was a different tariff for PHCN and a different tariff for the generator. In terms of trying to control the way the meters are being used, we designed it where our meters are not even put in the property at all, in the units at all. We built a special house for the meters, and no one can tamper with our meters, and we've been able to control the use of power in the estate. Now, I want to say this. The end user decides what use they want, if it's 24/7 or if it's 12 hours or if it's 10 hours. It's not the facilities manager, it's the end user, because it's your pocket. The estate I'm staying, I was very comfortable with having my power for generator 12 hours. But there were other people who didn't even want 8. Do you understand? So the end user really is the one who determines. Yes, unfortunately, we don't live in a country where they give us 24/7 lights, but that's where we are. We can't run away. Those who want to run away, they've run away. But those of us who are here, we need to be able to try to adjust until we get a better Nigeria.
Thank you,
That's
madam.
my
Thank you so much. So, sorry, Mr. Wale, I will come back to you, please. So thank you, madam, and that was very insightful. So I know, so let me take it to our CEO at Venco. I know he has quite a lot to say about managing wastage, thefts, and bringing down cost, operational cost in the estate.
Okay, thanks, Faye. So, this thing is like, how they said, 3 blind people were asked to describe an elephant, and one thinks it's a tree, the other one thinks it's, something else and all of that. So I suspect that we're all right, with the perspectives that we are bringing to the table. But the thing is that it's a really big topic, and big topics tend to be complex, to solve. And some of them aren't purely mitigated by logic, but there are also political considerations, in some of these things. So, giving an example, Mayo, gave the example of coming into a community that's already established. They've already made their investments in, massive generators that are oversized and all of that. We know that the generators are oversized, but the question is, who will bail the cat? What can we do with those generators? Are we going to sell them, buy new ones? Can we sell them for any reasonable amount? If we want to buy new ones that are better fitting, can we raise that money? So these are some of the questions that come in. Now, of course, you can argue and say that a lot of these decisions, if taken properly at the inception of that estate, will generally save the occupants or the residents in that estate a lot of heartache. And that's what I want to very quickly go through. Some of the things that I think that you should look out for when you are building a residential community, when you're looking to move into a residential community, and when you are going to manage a residential community. And right from the beginning, the design is where things can either succeed or they can fail, right? So one of the things around the design is that if you build the properties so that they are energy efficient and so that the cost of using energy in there is, you don't inflate it. So for example, when you build places that are not properly aerated and which demand that the ACs need to be on 24/7, you have essentially put the nail in the coffin of cost for whoever is going to live in there, because there's no way they can live there without ACs or running ventilation systems for a long period of time. Also in the design, when you think about how to place meters, so energy theft, unfortunately, is a big thing across the communities where we are, right? So the placement of meters can be the difference between not collecting as much as for enough for what you're producing, right, and just being able to collect. So keeping that in mind is one of the things that developers, I think, especially need to look at. Then you also need to think about data. So one of the things, and I heard Wale loud and clear there, is that we are running a lot of these systems really based on luck and on presumptions and assumptions. And I think one of the things that we can do is really be more data driven with respect to the whole energy generation and distribution framework within our communities. So something as simple as metering your generator, putting the same type of meters that you put on the transformers that supply your communities, you can do that on the generators as well, because what that helps you to do is, if you're using the right type of meter, to monitor load over time, the amount of energy that the generator is providing over time, and then to look at that vis-a-vis the capacity that you have. So one of the major issues for estates across Nigeria who do their own, backup power is that in 90% of the cases, in large percentage of the cases, I would say, the generators are over provisioned, right? So you have a community that shouldn't be using anything more than a 200 kVA, and they've gone and bought a 500 or a 1000 kVA. That's a recipe for overspend and for too much, for very high costs of energy. Because even if you don't use it to capacity, because you can't, you're going to be paying the cost of diesel that just keeps, and not just diesel, but any fuel that keeps that generator up. So this is one of the things. So you need something that can help you measure what your true demand is, and then kind of align that very closely with what your generating capacity is. Of course, use prepaid energy meters because it helps you to pre-fund the cost of energy, thereby reducing the burden on the facilities manager, or whoever else is managing that place, so that they don't have to, finance these things. But with the right type of smart meter, you can also get an idea of the trend of your consumption and then adjust, as to fit your pocket as well. I'm a big fan of dual tariff meters, so I think that you should also consider dual tariff meters, because what dual tariff meters do for you is that they help you realize what the true cost of energy is. So, I mean, we have a couple of communities that use our platform and our meters where the cost of the public, disco is maybe 80 naira, and the cost of per kilowatt cost of diesel or power from diesel is times 5, times 6, times 7, that figure, right? So many people, especially when they see these blended tariffs, can't really relate with how expensive power is, and therefore they don't change their behavior. So it helps, when you use these dual tariff meters, for you to be more aware of what the cost of backup power is, and then to tailor your demand as required. And then, of course, there's a big gap in the room, especially in the facilities management space, or like in that space, around the proper modeling of these costs, right? So, I mean, we've had extensive conversations with PFML, Principal Facilities, which Maiwa leads, and they get it. They understand the different dynamics and the components that come in, but that's not something we see across the board generally, be it with facilities managers or with residents associations that are playing that role. So there are standard models that you can use. There are some of the things that we can help with at Venco, but I think modeling your energy cost and how to recover those costs, what things are fixed, what things are variable, and how you can relay that into your tariff. I think that that's quite useful as well. So in summary, I would say that there are different facets to this, and really it takes stepping back and acting as early as possible in the life cycle of these communities for us to get it right. And I do think actually that 247 power, is something that is attainable, for a large number of the communities, if the right knowledge is had and if the correct decisions are taken. So just my 5 cents there.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that. And this is coming from the over 200 estates we have on our platform, because we learn from every estate we are in presently. And the good thing is these learnings we share with all our existing customers, so they all benefit from all this learning. So that's thank you for that. And moving, I'm trying to, because we've gone over an hour and we said we're going to stick to 1 hour. So I'm going to start with Mayowa. So how do you think prop tech has helped, or what role do you think they're playing in this energy management process in your communities?
Okay. Regarding prop tech, as far as energy management, what it has helped with is just giving people more insight on how they are spending and utilizing power. Previously, I mean, how the service charge and backup power model evolved used to be there will be a lump sum amount for services and for backup power at the same time. And that was when I believe there was a period where the diesel price really didn't surge more than 10% over a prolonged period of time. So it was easy to do a bit of benchmark forecasting for a lot of FMs. When diesel
Yeah.
started its own, private dance, there was a lot of dispute in many estates everywhere, simply because I would not take the position that I've paid you my service charge and I expect 247 power, and I don't want to care, what the cost of diesel is. So of course, people needed to now start isolating fixed costs, operational costs to capex. That's where data analysis came in. Stage one of data analysis had to do more with just even showing how much as a community you were spending on diesel and thereabouts. It now evolved to the point of where it was a diesel levy. And where the abuse came in there and where you couldn't do proper analysis is when you're on a diesel levy and it's not metered, people wait till the estate is on generator and then put on everything, the wash machines, everything, right? Because it's cheaper for them than running on the grid. It has evolved to where we are right now, which Chude referred to, which is dual tariff metering. It's almost hilarious, right? If you were a passive observer to see the impact of dual tariff metering, because people are switching off everything. When you isolate it from dual tariff metering at the current tariff, as Ugo said, no two sites, really can run the same tariff if you analyze it down to it. But you are not going to spend anything less than 300 naira just on gen per kilowatt. Right, people start switching off the luxury air conditioners in the stairwells and the toilets and the kitchens of rooms they don't use at that point. But it has also backfired, where we're now at a point where you're having communities with maybe 70 homes on a 500 kVA, and you're checking peak load when it's on gen at times they're on less than 100 kVA. So they've now evolved to installing mini grids on their ceilings. IPPs, so once it's on gen, they've taken some things off gen demand, so again, it's like a Rubik's Cube. As you're providing a solution, something else is shifting and you have to keep changing it. But straight up, immediately people knew they were spending too much on the grid part, on the gen part, and had to adapt. So the prop tech has helped with that. As we speak, I've been multitasking because we're actually sending other reports to a new site again on this same problem, where they're trying to challenge a tariff where, it just shows what you're using doesn't work and thereabouts. So it's products like with Venkos and all that. It's always very easy to generate analytics. And people can see for themselves per house, per meter, what they're using and can track usage and, become more cost responsible. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayowa. I won't take this to Ugo because I know he is co-founder and financial analyst at Nairametrics. So, and I know this is within your purview. So, what would be your comments on in ways PropTech is helping in energy management?
All right. So, even if I wear both my caps, I think for most, households, over the next 2 to 5 years, electricity cost is going to be one of the most significant parts of your purchasing income, or significant part of your income or purchasing power, right? Because electricity and data actually, because as we start to experience the the hype and the benefits of Internet of Things and the sort of lifestyle that we all crave for, and as people start to get into that, lower middle class, upper class level, you start to want to acquire a lot of equipment, and then power becomes a significant part of your cost. Let's also remember that most households now, this is no longer like nowadays where children spend most of their time playing football on the field. These days, children spend most of the time in the house. When they're in the house playing maybe PlayStation or any of these games, or hauling on their phone, they like to turn on ACs and all that. So power cost is going to be significantly high. So I think that from a financial literacy, from a personal finance point of view, you have to prioritize and figure out, what is more important to you. A lot of us are used to going abroad and seeing our friends and family, there, basically following you anywhere you're going to. As you're turning on lights, as you're turning it on, you're turning it off. As everybody's leaving the house, everybody's turning off stuff. So that's basically, what a developed economy is like. So these things are pretty much expensive. So you would have to find a way to prioritize how to, at least to a large extent, reduce your demand. Now, there are also other ways of managing power. I think Mayo mentioned maybe solar panels on rooftops and things like that. People do that as well, but they're not cheap too, by the way. Whether it's the capital outlay, that you have to fork out at the beginning, or whether it's even the replacement cost. There's a replacement cost that is probably maybe every 5 years or so, whether it's the battery you're replacing, or maybe it's the damaged solar panel, or maybe it's the inverter. So those things are also not expensive. So I think for me, the easiest way to manage your energy cost is to manage it on the demand side. I don't think it's a supply problem that we have. We have to manage on the demand side on your own. So reduce kind of equipment you have in your house, how often you turn on your ACs. ACs are the major guzzlers. I have calculators that I use, so I know when you turn on 4 ACs in my house already. I know that that's like 70 kilowatt hour that day, and I'm like screaming like, guys, what are you guys doing, right? And then also understand power metrics. So what am I saying? If you have a 7.5 kVA inverter and solar panel inverter, why the hell are you charging it with grid or generator? Because if you're charging it with grid or generator, that's adding like an extra 20 kilowatts to your bill, and you don't know, and you'll be screaming your head and blaming everybody, but it's you, because charging a 5 kVA, it's expensive. So if it's solar, I beg, allow the sun to do his work. When he powers down in the night, he switch back to grid. So a lot of all these things are, I guess that's what households need to do. So there's got to be a lot of education around this as well. There's an opportunity to educate people, because a lot of people don't seem to understand these things. But like I said, one thing that tends to happen in high inflationary environments and environments where cost of goods and services are high, people get disciplined. It's usually an opportunity to get people to be very, very disciplined financially. And it also helps people to prioritize, right? So you have to determine, understand the makeup of your power cost and your demand in your house, the things that you need and the things that you don't need. Why do you have to have a child who comes up 1 a.m. and decides to just microwave and sit down in the house and turn on the boiling kettle and I've learned all those things now. So when you turn on your water heater, after like 10 minutes, turn it off. The water is hot enough for you to use. Don't leave it the whole day. So all these sort of things are all, the sort of education that I think maybe, likes of property tax. I think that can start to put out there for a lot of their customers, because they don't know these things, and that's being honest. They don't at all. People don't. On the grid side, you see people just go when there's lights. People's bulbs are turned on all through, right? So nobody understands that you have to turn these things off, so that you can conserve not just power, but also cost. So I think from that perspective, that was my condition. And then one last thing as well is meter. I think a lot of people, either on the supply side or the demand side, there's a lot that can happen with your meter that can actually increase your cost of power, or can even increase the losses that you incur as a supplier of power. So being able to get the right meter that is well calibrated and that provides the right data analytics is very important for this whole process. So if you're a provider of power in an estate, I think you got to give your customers visibility, give them dashboards, let them see their power consumption, their peak consumption, their off-peak consumption. When the power goes up, what might have happened in their house, give them patterns, compare it with what their neighbors are doing. I think it kind of helps psychologically, because what tends to happen when there's no information, you think that your power supplier is ripping you off.
Sure.
Okay, So yeah, and then you start to complain. So I think that is also something that, some additional service that we have to provide. I think there's some doing it now, but I think we need more of it as well. And then there's got to be transparency in the way the tariffs are put together. I don't see a lot of transparency these days. So they don't want to tell you the cost of the generator. They don't want to tell you the losses. They don't want to tell you their open. So you got to be able to provide all that in a transparent way so that your customers can understand your makeup. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ugo. We really appreciate that. And you actually talked on quite a lot of things which we do at Venco, like the transparency, like having a dashboard that is telling you your consumption. The Venco app, you can see all that if you use the communication meters. And also for FMs, we've always talked about transparency. You can see your bills, you can see your energy, what your tariff is. Some estates they don't even tell their residents how much their tariff is. So transparency, dashboard, people being able to see metrics, analysis. Yeah, that is very key and it's part of what we stand for at Venco. So sorry, I want to take some questions. We've had people listen to us for an hour and a half. So let's thank you, Deji Abola. Good to hear from all your perspective. So John, do you want to put some of the questions up for us? Are there anyone specific for any user? Before I call Trudy to talk about how Venco actually is helping communities with all the solutions. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much for being here. And we have some very interesting comments from people who are viewing that we're going to put up right now. I think they would spark some conversations and they need some clarification. So I'll put them on the screen right now.
Okay.
So this is a comment from Ife Oluwadayo, and it reads that we need synergy with major players in the built environment throughout the life cycle of the building. And I think it was also speaking of the fact that all of these parties that we need to find a way that we work together. I think it's something that we've discussed or we started having a conversation is the fact that we cannot operate in isolation, right? So this is a comment that he had made earlier. Um, and then there's also comments about somebody who, he also found it interesting what Mr. Ogo has shared as well from the perspective of a user. Um, I'm also going to share a comment. If has been very, very active in the comment section. And another comment that he had, and it was particular that we showed this, is that until we have mini grids and government open the power industry, then we have more industry experts solving these issues. And this came around when Adewale was also giving his views on the situations that we have at hand. Okay, so I'm going to share one more, and I'm going to share one more before we move. Okay, so this is another comment from Henry, who says this has been very informative, that he's going to be in touch. And there are so many other comments from people who has found this informative. I thought to share this to also say to our speakers that we've done a great job in the conversation so far. Thank you so much for being up here, and I'll hand over back to Faye to continue.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, John. So I will leave it now to Chude because we need to wrap up. Sorry, we can't take more comments. So Chude, please go ahead and talk to us about how Venco has helped communities, over 200 communities in 7 cities, manage energy and also collections and every other aspects Venco does. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Faye, and I really have to thank all the speakers, for their insights. Even I have learned quite a bit going through this conversation, and I think Ife's comments are really quite. And there he is again with more comments. So his comments are quite relevant, because the truth is that the typical paradigm today for real estate, especially residential real estate, is that the developer has money and he builds his estate. He builds his estate to maximize his returns. But the problem is that in maximizing his short-term returns, he may create very long-lasting problems for whoever it is that comes into those communities. Therefore, I think that there is actually a space or a place for, and I say this with not as someone who likes regulators to actually participate in anything, but I do think that there is a space for regulators to actually look at, real estate, at people who are building for communities so that they can help to provide insights into how these developers can build these communities, not just to maximize their returns, but also to make them livable in an economic way for whoever is going to come, into them. And at Venco, we are playing our own small parts in that spectrum because the value chain for real estate is everywhere from construction, financing, mortgages, rent, and all of that, all the way to the operations. So we are on the operations side of the spectrum, and so we generally get to see what's the end results of good or bad decisions, by developers and facilities managers, are, and I would say that basically what we've done is, well, we've provided tools that help in the management, but then we also want to go a bit upstream and also be able to provide some thought leadership and some best practices, which is what this webinar is, to help to educate people about the decisions they make when they are building these communities and when they run these communities, and also when they are choosing these communities to live in. So this is somewhere where we want to act a bit more. So I think it's clear Venco is the operating system for residential and commercial communities, and we're here to make life easier in these communities. We built tools that help for everything from utilities vending, data from utilities, issue management, billing and collections, access control, and so many other things. So I'm sure that as following this webinar, you will all receive some information that tells us a bit more about how Venco can basically improve the quality of the operations in your community and make life easier and better for you. So I think I'll round up with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. So before we round up on that, Mide has a perspective on cost management. So let me give him just 1 minute so that we can close. So for all our viewers on how they can effectively manage costs in terms of energy in their estates, their communities rather.
Okay, thank you, Faye. The perspective I have to add to what Maya and Ugo has said is I think the entire ecosystem have to work together to begin to drive, should I say, better cost reflective solution for consumers, right? So I'll take it from a Viatank sort of perspective where, for instance, you have a Viatan, you have a Venco, and you have the customer, right? So Viatan on their part would have to we every day worry about how do we ensure that we are efficient enough to reduce our cost of energy production, right? Venco being one of the metering platforms that we partner with, ensuring that there's transparency in that whole system and ensuring that there's some efficiency to even collections, and we can also track things like ATC and C losses, where as we're also tracking that, we have that data being tracked, we're also improving our own, should I say, our own system. So if, for instance, I'll give you a good example, if the total power delivered to a customer site is captured by Venco's meter, which is transparent to both Viatan and the customer and Venco, right? And the should I say, Viatan's output meter is reading something else. That already tells you that there's some inefficiency in that system. And by tracking those things, right, you're also able to reduce your cost of generation, because otherwise, if you have theft and energy losses due to poor design, right, your cost of energy will be more expensive, right? So I think as we think about this solution, because it's a problem that affects every one of us, right? Cost of electricity, whether you're a producer or you're a user or you're a metering service provider like Venco, it all affects every one of us. So I think we need to be more collaborative in solving this problem and get everyone doing things together. And that's why, I should say, Judy, thank you for putting this together. It's useful for everyone to participate in this.
Thank you, Midi. Thank you so much. And I'd like to especially thank everyone for coming, Mr. Dewali, Midi, Mayowa, Ugo, our OCO, Trudy, Madam Aima. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you for taking time out to listen to this. I hope this has been very, very informative. And above all, we are all striving to manage energy in our communities and reduce our costs. So at Venco, we offer you that transparency. You can see all that, and we hope to have more of this. So see you next time. We'll be having more of these webinars, and we'll hope to see more of you, and we'll be talking about other topics that are key to communities and will help you manage your communities better. So thank you from all of us at Venco, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Faye.
All right, thank you for having
Thank
us.
guys.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Faye.
Bye
Thank
to
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
And to everyone who commented, thank you so much. I will end the stream now.
My name is Yetine Ogunadigbe. I'm a resident of Pine Water Gardens too. I came to know about Venco sometime last year. I used it as an administrator when the facility management left us in the dark, and then Venco came to our rescue. So we used it as an administrator, and then I'm using it as a resident now. Oh, the resident app, I use it to book visitors. I use it to pay for my electricity, and I use it to pay for my service charge, and then report issues if any. So I'll start with the biggest one, the most amazing one to me. I do not have to interact with the security as much anymore, because when I need to book visitors, I book it via the app, and they just come in, so I know who's coming in. And then two, I can get my electricity tokens easily. So I just pay for electricity, get my tokens via the app, input it, and that's it. And then I use it to pay for my service charge every month. So it makes the process seamless. Also, less interaction with management. There was a time where the security phone stopped working. Because I was using the app, the phone they use for the app is totally different, and I was able to book my visitors. I didn't have to think about the new number that they had changed it to or anything like that. So it made my life easy that day. No hassles, no issues, nothing. So yes, it really came to the rescue that day. I would recommend it 100%. It makes your life easy. Totally, totally easy. I'm not even lying. It makes it easy. You can book your visitors easily. You can pay for electricity easily. You can pay for your service charge easily. You can report your issues easily. Everything becomes seamless. So I would recommend it 100%. My name is Yetine.
Do you find it overwhelming to manage several properties at the same time? Does it seem like you're running out of time to achieve all your daily tasks? We know just how you feel, and we're here to help. Our app allows you to manage all your properties from your smartphone. Anywhere you are, anytime you want. Download the Venco admin app from your local app store today. Do you find it overwhelming to manage several properties at the same time? Does it seem like you're running out of time to achieve all your daily tasks? We know just how you feel, and we're here to help. Our app allows you to manage all your properties from your smartphone.